What's up guys, it's Crazy Aaron here, and yeah, as promised, the video you probably were not waiting for. I mean, I don't know how many people actually wanted this video, but I did it anyway because of Dork Diaries 15 coming out soon. I decided to reread every single Dork Diaries book. Now, for this video, I'm going to be reading the main Dork Diaries books, like books 1 to 14. Just the 14 main books in the main series. Obviously, I'm not going to be rereading the activity books like Dork Diaries 3.5 or Dork Diaries OMG. I'm not going to be reading those. I'm not going to be reading the Max Crumbly books either because I just don't feel like there's any need to. There's only 3 of them, and I'm pretty sure I'm clear on what I think of those books. I can't remember how long it's been since I actually read the first book, but I read the first book yesterday. By the time I'm recording this, not like yesterday by the time you're seeing this, but I think it's like September 4th or something. I don't know the date. But I've read the first book, and here it is. This is my copy. It's pretty old. I believe I've had this copy since 2013. So yeah, about 6-7 years old. So for those of you who didn't watch my rereading the Diary of Wimpy Kid series I did back in March, basically how these videos work is you'll see me doing clips of each time I read a book, and I will give you my quick summed up thoughts. I don't go too in-depth with these videos because I've reviewed all these books before, so if you want to know more in-depth thoughts, you can watch my older reviews I did of the Dork Diaries books. Most of them were done in 2016, so the quality's not that great, and the way I talk wasn't great, and the way I described everything wasn't great. So keep in mind, if you do want to go back and read the in-depth reviews I did of these books, it's pretty bad. The videos are pretty bad, but here I'm just gonna sum up my thoughts. So yeah, as I said, read the first book for first time in a while, and I still loved it for pretty much all the reasons that I stated in my old review. I can't remember what I said, but the book is just so good because it feels so natural. There's such a natural, it's a natural feeling when you're reading this because it's just a girl who's writing in her diary and she's sharing all her thoughts. And one of the things that I really like about this book is that it actually doesn't feel like a published book. I know that sounds bad, but the author, Rachel Renee Russell, she does a really good job at making you believe that this is Nikki who's writing in this book and not like Rachel who's writing in this book, even though it is. What I mean is it's like someone handed you Nikki's diary and you're reading it. It sounds weird, but that's honestly what it feels like, and that is really great for this type of book. It's a really good thing to do because, you know, Nikki, the way she writes in the diary feels so natural. The writing feels so natural for a 14-year-old girl, and everything makes sense. You don't really question anything she says. Yeah, this book was released back in 2009. It's 10 years old now. That's pretty crazy. Actually, it's 11 years old now. So that's even more crazy. So an 11-year-old book, and I first read it in 2013, as I said. This is probably going to be the longest clip out of all of them because I actually have a lot to say about this series in general rather than just the first book. And I know I should probably just save that till the end, but I'm going to do it now. One of the things that I wanted to get into was what some people think before they actually read the Dork Diaries series, or for those who haven't read it at all and they just they see Dork Diaries and they're like, wow, this seems like a huge ripoff of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And I'm not gonna lie, that's what I first thought back in 2013 when a friend of mine in school was actually recommending me these books. This person said that it's a really good series, and they were reading the 6th book at the time, and the 6th book is actually when it introduced me to the Dork Diaries series, but I'll get to that when I talk about the 6th book. But yeah, initially I thought it was a ripoff of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, just from the title and the kind of concept. It's a character writing a diary, and it's middle school stuff. But really, once you actually read this book, you'll understand that this is almost nothing like Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Yes, the concepts are similar. It's a middle schooler writing in a diary, but that's the only the only two things that this series shares with Diary of a Wimpy Kid, because Nikki feels like a unique character. The whole thing with Greg is that he's kind of unlikable, whereas Nikki is supposed to be relatable. Now here's the thing about this book. I actually own 2 copies of it, and one is actually the Super Squee edition, and this was a version of the book that they released in 2016, I think, and it's you'd think it was like the same exact book, but it's actually not. It actually has a lot of updated artwork and actually updated dialogue for, I guess, what they wanted to update to, like maybe a modern spin on Dork Diaries. Do I think it was needed? No, definitely not. This was actually pretty unnecessary, but it's not like other special editions of books that I've read, like Big Nate. The first Big Nate chapter book had a special edition, and the only thing different about that was that it had like a few comics at the end or something. I can't even remember. I don't even have the book anymore, but and then you got the special cheesiest edition of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, which basically changed almost nothing. It colored in the cheese, which I think is like the only difference. And then there's a little write-up from Jeff Kinney at the beginning, but this changes a lot about the first book. It updates the dialogue, as I said. Every single illustration that was in the first book is updated in this. And some illustrations are actually added. So, again, it's not necessary, but I do think that it fits. Like, this is kind of like a what-if scenario. Like, what if Dork Diaries were released in 2016 and it had all, like, the modern character designs that we know today? So that's basically what you can expect. It's basically the first Dork Diaries book, but with the modern Dork Diaries kind of style, with the dialogue and stuff. And one thing that I did notice was that there's a lot of pop culture references in the original version compared to the special, or the Super Squee edition. My god, there's so many special editions. But yeah, there's a lot of differences with references to pop culture. I actually think that is a downgrade, because like most of the time I hate when, you know, stuff in movies, TV shows, books, doesn't matter. Like when it just references pop culture for the sake of referencing them, it feels very lazy, and it kind of like, oh, we have to appeal to the, you know, the generation of today, and it just feels so like stupid. And I've complained about pop culture references before in books, but I actually think it works out in Dork Diaries. This is one of the few exceptions I have, because again, like I said, it's a 14-year-old writing in a diary, and it's supposed to feel natural, so it makes sense that she would reference all these celebrities and, you know, TV shows and movies and stuff like that. So, like, it makes sense for a book like this. But the Super Squee edition actually gets rid of, like, I think I actually didn't, like, read through the Super Squee edition. I know I said I read both, but technically I did read both, because the story is the exact same. You know, like, nothing about the story has changed. It's just, like I said, I looked through every single page. All of the illustrations are updated, and the dialogue is kind of switched around a little bit. Like, for example, In the original book, the prize for the art competition is actually $500, but the prize for the Super Squee edition is actually $750. So it actually makes sense to update the price considering, you know, real world circumstances. But so that was actually a welcome addition, a welcome improvement, or not really improvement, but just something new to add for like the time that it was released. A lot of the changes I felt were a downgrade. Not that they were bad, it was just that they weren't as good as the stuff done in the original. So I would certainly recommend the original more, and I know that they're kind of shoving the Super Squee edition in your face because, like, from what I see, from my personal experience, I've only ever seen the Super Squee edition nowadays being advertised, and it's never like the original version. So they might be starting to not produce copies of the original version from what I can tell. So this might be the only version that's actually being made now. But if you can track down an original copy, I'd say definitely go for it because it's the better version. And one thing I noticed about rereading the first book, the original edition, was that a lot of it feels a lot more mature than the rest of the Dork Diaries books, or at least more of the modern Dork Diaries books. The first book feels a lot more mature. Not that it tackles like adult subjects or like it has like, you know, swears or anything like that. I mean, there are references to swears in this book, but they're not actually said. But it feels like a much more mature Dork Diaries. And what a 14-year-old would actually say and stuff that would happen. Whereas the more modern Dork Diaries books, they're a lot more kid-friendly with what they say, which I think is kind of like, kind of stupid. I mean, I think it's unnecessary. I mean, maybe I assume the reason is because Dork Diaries since then has become a lot more popular, so a lot more kids are reading it, so they kind of want to tone down some of the more mature dialogue. Again, not that there's like swearing or like adult themes or anything, but you know, like you'll understand it if you read it. It's kind of hard to explain, but I'll give you an example. They actually changed a word in the special I can't even say it. Super Squee edition. I think Jessica says something to Mackenzie to describe her art as bootylicious in the original version, and they changed that word to fabulicious. Because I guess fab is a lot more kid-friendly than booty. So again, like that's one of the examples. Just my personal preference, I think that booty sounds a lot more funny. It's funnier to me, and I just think that fabulicious is like, as soon as I read that, I was like, okay, yeah, that's completely a change because they probably thought it was more suitable for kids. Yeah, I know a lot of this first book clip was a lot of me just comparing the changes between these two, but it's interesting changes. If you want a better experience, definitely go for the first book, as I said. But if you're interested in like a more kid-friendly version of the first book, then I guess pick up the Super Squee edition if you want that. I don't know why you would want a more kid-friendly version. I honestly hope that they don't do like Super Squee editions of like the other books. This wasn't even made for like a special event, you know? Like it wasn't like the 10-year anniversary or the 5-year anniversary or anything. This was just made randomly, I guess. So like, I don't really know the reasoning behind, well, probably the reasoning is just that they wanted to make it fit more with the modern Dork Diaries, but I don't know, I just, another reason why you should pick up the original more is because, you'd probably want to, or at least me, I just think it's better for you to see how Dork Diaries started out and then how far it's come to today. So I think it's definitely something that's more interesting. But enough about the Super Squee edition. I would absolutely recommend the original version. It's a great book, and same reasons. I really have no different things to say about this book. It's still really great. I'm gonna give Dork Diaries 1, I'm not saying the full title because it's long as shit, a 9.5 out of 10. Okay, so Dork Diaries 2 now. My opinion has not changed with this book. I still feel pretty much exactly how I felt when I first read it. When I first read it, I thought it was not a bad sequel, but I felt like compared to other sequels I've read, it wasn't very memorable. For example, Roger Rules is a very memorable book. It's it's not as good as the original, but it's at least still a memorable sequel that is feeling a lot like the original. Not that this doesn't feel like Dork Diaries 1, it certainly does, but it's not very memorable. I mean, if you were to give me, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days, I'm probably going to forget a lot of what happened in this book. Now, obviously, the main things that I would remember are, the main plot, being about parties and how it's kind of a popularity contest with parties, and the stuff with Mackenzie's party and the Halloween dance / party, I guess. So yeah, but those main things, like the parties that happen in the book, are the main what the book is mainly about. But honestly, the rest of the stuff that doesn't have to do with parties, it's very forgettable. Not that it's done bad. Another thing that I noticed about this book was that it started this trend in the series where every time, not every time, almost every time Nikki draws something to, like, show what she was talking about or what she's referring to, they always she always puts this, like, caption under the drawing to, like, say what's happening in the drawing, and I think it's really unnecessary. Why do we need that? I mean, we see the drawing, we know what's happening. You don't need to then say to us directly after. Like, for example, this is not in this book, but I think in general a lot of the more modern Dork Diaries books will do this. Nikki will be, like, freaking out about something, and she'll draw herself, freaking out or screaming or anything or something like that. But then she'll immediately say, me screaming under the drawing, like, or me freaking out about this. I think it's really unnecessary, and I think it's just, it seems like filler. I mean, not just the caption, but when it's just a drawing of Nikki screaming or something like that, I feel like it's just pointless. You don't need to draw something like that. I mean, I guess the character in context, Nikki, I don't know, maybe she wants to draw to just, because it helps her express herself, she's built up with rage and stuff, so she draws a picture of herself screaming. And I noticed that in Dork Diaries 2, there is a lot more filler than there is in Dork Diaries 1. Honestly, I don't think there's any filler at all in Dork Diaries 1. Every single chapter, every single diary entry serves some sort of purpose. It may not affect the whole story as a whole, but it at least continues the book. There's a reason for it to be there. And not that the filler is, like, bad, but it's just, there's no point for it. Like, there's stuff with, there's like chapters that are, like, 2 or 3 pages long, and it's just, like, Nikki complaining about Mackenzie or something, or complaining about something that happened, in an earlier entry, or, you know, something that happened with her parents or Brianna, and I just think it's just filler. And like I said, there are still a lot of great stuff in it, you know, like Nikki and Brandon's relationship is of course continued, and Brandon asks her to the Halloween dance, which is pretty cool, and the whole dialogue exchange they have in these books is something that's really done well. It's relatable for, you know, people who have crushes. Something that's been consistent throughout all the books is Nikki and Brandon's relationship. That's like the one thing that has always been on point and always continued to like new levels, and they do, you know, they're constantly progressing their relationship with each book. And the part at the end where she has to juggle like 3 events at once, or she has to put on the rat costume and go to the kids like little party that they're having for the kids for like Halloween or something, and then she has to sneak back to Chloe and Zoe in their trash bag costumes, and then she has to sneak back to Brandon in her Juliet costume. So yeah, like that part, the whole last entry is really great. There is actually 2 different covers of this book, which I found interesting. I'll put it up somewhere, but yeah, so just so you have a comparison, those are the 2 different covers. I don't know why they this is the newest cover, the one I have, but I don't know why they changed the cover. There's no need to it. It like the books aren't different. Like it's not like this isn't like a super squee edition. It's the same exact book, just a different cover. So I'm not sure when they changed the cover, but this is the copy I got, and it came with this cover. I'm gonna give Dork Diaries 2 a 7 out of 10. So next up is Dork Diaries 3, Tales from a Not So Talented Pop Star. And my opinions have not changed. And yeah, I'm filming this the same day I filmed my Dork Diaries 2 clip, because I actually read book 3 like really quick. So yeah, it's like 9:15 by the time I'm filming this. So like I said, my opinion hasn't really changed. I still think this is a really good book. Not really great. It's has a few problems, but it's actually way better than book 2. There's no filler in this book. Every single entry feels like it has a purpose. The thing I realized about the story in the book is that Nikki will try to do something, or it seems like she's going on like the right track, in order to like fix a problem that Mackenzie started, and then Mackenzie will just put like a roadblock in her way, and then she'll find a way to be back on the right track again, and then Mackenzie will do something to ruin it again. And that's how the majority of the book goes. It's just that constant, you know, kind of circle. Nikki does something, goes on the right track, Mackenzie does something to ruin it, and then Nikki tries to fix it, and she does, and then Mackenzie does something to try to ruin it. So that's how the story goes in this book, and that's not bad. Maybe some people would think that it would get repetitive, but the things they do, I think it's a good way, because it's constantly keeping you thinking like, oh my god, like is Nikki going to be in the talent show or not, and stuff like that, because she's doing this to get into the talent show, because the only reason she has a scholarship to go to the school is because of her dad's bug extermination contract with the school that nobody else knows about. And Mackenzie, spoiler alert by the way, Mackenzie we find out at the end of the book that Mackenzie kind of pulled a prank on Nikki, and made her think that she had to pay a tuition bill to, I guess, keep her in the school. And it turns out, you know, it was just a prank by Mackenzie, and it had Nikki completely worried. Yeah, Mackenzie is extremely unlikable in this book. I know she's supposed to be, that's not a complaint, but I'm just saying, like, it's ugh, like it's really aggravating at some points. Some of the negatives, well, I didn't really like the stuff with the entries with her family. They weren't filler. They weren't really filler, but it just I just didn't like them. I didn't think they were really that interesting, and it's supposed to be comedic, and I didn't find it that funny. Another negative I have is again near the end where Trevor Chase offers Nikki and her band. He really liked the band, and apparently he wants to do something really big, and maybe get the song like actually the song they made, which is called like Dorkalicious or something, wants to get actually published. But I don't really like the stuff with Trevor Chase, not just in this book, but throughout the series. Like it happens again in Dork Diaries 7 and Dork Diaries 14, the newest one. Like basically just all this stuff with Nikki's band and her going on these tours and like her kind of being like a famous pop star. Like she's not famous all over the world, but like you kind of like it kind of seems like that, like she's this huge pop star. And I never really liked that part of the series because this is supposed to be like a relatable middle school story, and then you just add this like pop star element to the character, and it just really feels out of place. But those were my major negatives. There's other minor ones, but overall, I really think that Dork Diaries 3 is so far the superior sequel. Dork Diaries 2, again, not bad, but I think Dork Diaries 3 definitely improves in some aspects. Like, there's no filler. Everything serves a purpose. I'm going to give Dork Diaries 3 a 7.5 out of 10. So yeah, we're 3 books in already, and my opinion has not changed on any of them so far. I hope it's not the same with the rest of the books, because otherwise this video would be completely pointless. So, Dork Diaries 4, Tales from a Not So Graceful Ice Princess. I remembered when I got the box set of Dork Diaries books. When I first started reading the books, I had a box set of the first 6 books. And yeah, I have a lot of memories reading the first 6 books when I first got them. And yeah, I was having a lot of fun reading them. And I have to say, my opinion has changed on this book. But the first time, let me tell you about the first time I read this book. The first time I read this book, I was not liking it. It ended up being my least favorite out of the 6 books at the time, because my only reasoning for it was that I thought it was really boring. And then I think the second time I read the book, I liked it a lot more. I didn't think it was boring anymore. It became one of my favorites out of the 6. But now I don't know how many times I've reread this one, but now I reread it. I don't really like it. So I went from not liking it to really liking it to not liking it as much anymore. First off, I think that the whole skating thing, the Holiday on Ice show that Nikki has to do in order to keep Fuzzy Friends open, because Fuzzy Friends is going to close down because one of the owners is in the hospital, and Brandon volunteers at Fuzzy Friends, as we all know. And if Fuzzy Friends closes down, Brandon is going to have to move to a different school, and Nikki wants to stop this from happening. So she enters the Holiday on Ice show in order to get the money to keep Fuzzy Friends open. You get $3,000 for participating in the show, and you get $10,000 if you come in first place. And of course, we all know this. I mean, I don't think that, spoiler alert, but Nikki does end up getting the $10,000. I just didn't think the skating thing, the Holiday on Ice show, it just wasn't as it wasn't as interesting as a story as the first 3 books, you know? Like, the talent show stuff was a lot more interesting than this. You know, even the Halloween stuff in Dork Diaries 2 was a lot more interesting than this. So again, it goes back to my original thoughts on this book of it being sort of boring. I wouldn't say this is like a complete bore fest. You know, it's not boring. It's just that it's really not as interesting as the first 3. And one thing I have to say is that Brianna is the most annoying character in this book. And yeah, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, well, Brianna's like, what, 6 years old? And she was up to like these crazy antics in the first 3 books. And I get that, and I get that she's a 6-year-old kid and that she would do these types of things. But the things that she does in these books are just really irritating. I mean, there's this one chapter where the family is having like, I don't know, family sharing time or whatever, and they go to like this, they go to a play, which is like this Princess Sugar Plum thing that Brianna likes, and Brianna is just acting like a total brat. I mean, she, eventually, near the end, she needs to go to the bathroom, and by the way, that's a running thing in this book, Brianna constantly saying she needs to go to the bathroom, which is really annoying. But she goes to the bathroom and she starts playing with the toilet paper, and she covers herself in toilet paper, and then she goes on stage during the play and starts basically just harassing and just being a complete brat to the actors, the performers, and it's just, it's annoying. Rachel is trying to make it a sort of funny thing, and Nikki's like super embarrassed and stuff, but like I didn't find it funny in the slightest. I was really annoyed, and Brianna is just the most irritating character throughout this entire book. Even at the beginning, like the first chapter, I think, Brianna is like running away with the phone, and when Brandon's on the phone and Nikki's trying to talk to him, and it's just like, ugh. Like, this is the most annoying Brianna has ever been in the series. I dare say that this series, I don't know, maybe she'll become more annoying once my mind refreshes on a few of the later books, but so far out of the ones I've reread, this is the most annoying Brianna has ever been. There's also a couple filler chapters. Those are my major problems. It's not a very compelling story. There's good stuff in it, you know. Again, Nikki and Brandon's relationship. The whole thing with Brandon going to new depths with his character, like him, you know, his parents died and his grandparents own fuzzy friends and he might be moving away, you know, just adding stuff to his character. Nikki and Brandon's relationship, again, like I said, great. So yeah, Dork Diaries 4 is not very good. I wouldn't say, so far out of the ones I've reread, it's definitely my least favorite, but I wouldn't say it's one of the worst in the series. There's definitely some good elements in here. I'm going to give Dork Diaries 4 a 5.5 out of 10. Okay, so it's the same day as I filmed the Dork Diaries 4 clip, and I just finished Dork Diaries 5. Before I actually get into Dork Diaries 5, I want to mention something that I forgot to mention in the Dork Diaries 4 clip. In Dork Diaries 4, Nikki actually references Dork Diaries 3.5, the whole How to Dork Your Diary thing, the DIY book. And I just wanted to say that makes absolutely no sense. She says that she lost her diary at school. Like, she's referencing another time. She says, oh, that time I lost my diary at school. And actually, she does say that in Dork Diaries 5 as well. She said she lost her diary at school. And I kind of wanted to just say this because it doesn't make any sense. I probably mentioned this in a review I did in Dork Diaries 3.5 a while ago. The reason that doesn't make any sense is that Dork Diaries 3.5, hence, 3.5, the title, it takes place, I guess it supposedly takes place between 3 and 4. But here's the thing. 3 ends on November 30th. That's the last entry. The first entry of Dork Diaries 4 is December 1st. There's no day in between those days. So it doesn't make sense. Nikki never specifies what day it is, so they knew that, they couldn't, they couldn't get a date for it because it wouldn't make any sense. But also, I actually looked this up, and because you might be thinking, oh, well, maybe Nikki's just referencing I lost my diary at school in 4 and 5 because it was another time she lost her diary at school. And yeah, you could assume that. But if you actually read online, it actually does say that Dork Diaries 3.5 is canon, which, again, makes no sense. Not only does the date of the book make no sense, like, the date's non-existent, but it also doesn't make sense when it's taking place, but it also doesn't make sense considering the fact that they say it's canon, but Nikki in the book is talking to the reader. Like, she's interacting and instructing the reader on how to make a diary or how to write a diary. So, again, how is that canon? Unless Nikki can, break the fourth wall, I just don't think the Dork Diaries 3.5 makes any sense. But it's not a big deal. I mean, if you look at Dork Diaries 3.5 by itself, who cares? If it's canon or not, whatever. But when you take into consideration the fact that she does reference them in future books, that's when it starts to fall apart. But anyway, that's enough about that. Let's get into Dork Diaries 5, Tales from a Not-So-Smart Miss Know-It-All. So when I was younger and had my box set, Dork Diaries 5 was, again, one of the ones that was probably my second least favorite, next to Dork Diaries 4. And it was just that it wasn't that I didn't think anything about it was memorable. It was kind of very forgetful compared to the other 6, or the other 5. Basically, Nikki wants to get into the journalism in her school because of what her, Chloe, and Zoe did. They toilet papered Mackenzie's house, and Mackenzie found out about this, and she's threatening to use it against them to get Nikki out of school, to get kicked out of the school. And this, of course, has Nikki worried, so she thinks that since Mackenzie is part of the journalism at school, she wants to get in there too so she can find out if Mackenzie is doing anything fishy or is going to report her to the principal or anything like that. So she ends up being the advice columnist, and hence the name, Miss Know-It-All. She calls herself Miss Know-It-All and answers kids' problems that they send in to her. And, that part of the book is actually pretty interesting. And this is the book that introduces Marcy as a new character, who hasn't appeared in all the books after, but she joins the school paper as well. And in the end, spoiler alert again, in the end she ends up helping Nikki's case with Mackenzie, and basically kind of pits a blame over on Mackenzie about what happened in Dork Diaries 4, how Mackenzie locked Chloe, Zoe, and Nikki in a storage locker, and so now Mackenzie is basically, she's screwed. She can't say anything against them now, or else they'll think that she's lying or something like that. And you also have, of course, Nikki and Brandon's relationship continuing, and Brandon's birthday party in this book, which was pretty good. But overall, there's nothing too exciting in this book. It just feels like another Dork Diaries book. I would say it's better than Dork Diaries 4, not as good as the first 3. So far this is my second favorite, or second least favorite. Brianna still has some moments where she's really freaking annoying, but it's not nearly as bad as Dork Diaries 4. I'm gonna give Dork Diaries 5 a 6.5 out of 10. Okay, so I read Dork Diaries 6, and I know I sound disappointed, and it's because I am. My opinion has changed, and I'm sure you can guess how it's changed. It really sucks to say this, but this book was really bad. And there's honestly only like a few redeeming qualities about it. When I was younger, this was my favorite sequel, and it was my favorite sequel for a long time. But I reread it. When I reread it now, it's not good. It really sucks. And honestly, I have so much I want to say about this book that it's to the point where I'm considering making a separate video just on this book alone, because I really want to go more in depth with this book, because like I just said, there's a lot of stuff that I have to say. So I'm just going to give you the highlights, and then maybe later down the road, it's not going to be soon because September, October is like busy months for me, so maybe sometime in November, December, I'll have an updated, more in-depth review of Dork Diaries 6. My god, I mean, okay, so my main problems, here are the highlights. Because I don't want this video to go on for too long. I mean, it's already really super long, so I'm going to try to be quick with this clip. There is so much filler in this book, it's not even funny. It's way more filler than Dork Diaries 4 had. It's way more filler than Dork Diaries 2 had. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, there's a side plot involving Nikki in gym class doing swimming lessons, and that stuff is just horrible. It's filler, and there's even a really dumb moment that I'll get into that with my review, but there's a really dumb moment. So the swim stuff is just terrible. There's even another side plot that, again, is pointless, just filler. Brianna meets Mrs. Wallbanger's grandson, which I believe is actually, Max Crumley's little brother, but we don't know that yet. But Oliver is a terrible character. Not that he's annoying like Brianna is, but because, I guess he is annoying because he's literally the same character as Brianna, but with a different set of genitals. Yeah, he's just a male version of Brianna. It felt very lazy to me. And I guess in this weird sort of way, they wanted to give Brianna like a little boyfriend character that she could have, because February, the month of Valentine's Day. And it's terrible. All the stuff done with them is it's pointless. You just want to skip it. You could skip it. I mean, all the chapters with Brianna and Oliver, you can just skip. I don't think there's too many. I think there's 2 or 3 chapters, and they're big chapters, but it's not like, it doesn't take up a huge chunk of the book. The swim stuff does take up a huge chunk of the book. But the main story involves Nikki and Brandon's relationship. It's Tales from a Not So Happy Heartbreaker, and Brandon and Nikki are on the cover, so you can kind of guess what it's going to be about. But basically, I'm not going to spend too much time. I'm just going to say, Mackenzie, spoiler alert, stole Brandon's phone at Brandon's birthday, which she crashed, and basically is texting Nikki using Brandon's phone and texting her all these really rude things that Nikki thinks Brandon is saying, and which, by the way, makes Nikki seem like a complete idiot, because the stuff that Brandon texts her seems like something Mackenzie would say. So I really don't think, I really don't understand why it took Nikki until Brandon actually explained it to her to figure out the obvious, because even if you didn't know what happened, you could guess what happened from a mile away. I mean, it's so predictable. And another huge problem about it is that I really feel like Nikki's luck in this book is just way too much. Nikki has a lot of good luck in this book because she ends up getting an A in her swim class and ends up breaking the record for fastest time doing a lap, and is beats Mackenzie in a race, gets first place, you know, and in the end of the book, she gets crowned Sweetheart Princess. Again, I really don't like that because, okay, if we look, again, I'll go more into this, but Nikki has won a lot of stuff throughout the school year so far, you know, the art competition. The talent show, she was selected specifically by Trevor Chase, that they wanted to record a song with them. And winning the Holiday on Ice show and getting first place on that. Those stuff, you know, I can accept. But this book just took it way too far. I mean, Nikki's luck in this is just so unbelievable. To the point, it actually reminds you that you're reading a book of fiction and not like something that you can relate to. Like the series is supposed to be, you know, it's supposed to be relatable, but this doesn't feel relatable when Nikki is constantly winning everything and getting first place in everything. So those are my main problems with the book. There's, like I said, there's little good stuff in this book. Nikki and Brandon's relationship, again, it's done great, as it always is. The best part about this book is actually when they go on their first date at Crazy Burger near the end of the book. And that whole chapter is really great. That whole entry, whatever you want to call it. It's done extremely well. And like I said, it's the best part about this book. But other than that, this book is really bad. I'm honestly tempted to say that it's worse than Dork Diaries 4. And thinking about it now, honestly, I do think it's worse than Dork Diaries 4. It's the worst book I've reread so far. And that's crazy because, again, my favorite sequel when I was younger, and it's now so far my least favorite book in the series out of ones I've read so far. So that's really surprising, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend this one, honestly. You can skip it. Honestly, the majority of the book is filler. The only takeaway from this book is that Nikki and Brandon end up sorting their problems out and going to the sweetheart dance together. That's the only thing you need to know about this book. Other than that, once you know that little detail, just skip it. I mean, read Dork Diaries 5, go Dork Diaries 7. I mean, it really, just skip it. I'm gonna give Dork Diaries 6 a 4 out of 10. Okay, so I read Dork Diaries 7 now, and I'm gonna make this clip pretty quick because there's not a lot I have to say about it. I just want to say that when I first read it, I liked it, but again, I was like 11 years old when I first read this, so, you know, obviously I don't have the mindset that I do now. Each time I would read this book, it kind of got worse and worse for me, and now, as I reread it, it is definitely the worst book so far. And I was kind of expecting that because I've never been a big fan of this book, honestly. This always was just, I found it to be very uninteresting. One of my biggest reasons for this book being bad is that, like I said with Dork Diaries 3, Nikki's whole pop star and music career just doesn't work for me. It doesn't feel like something like this would happen to an average 14-year-old, you know? This middle schooler who came from, you know, being this huge dork and being so unpopular is now, like, partly famous and is recording these songs, and in this book, it's the worst of all because she gets her own reality TV show, which doesn't make any sense for me. There's no reason for it, honestly. I think Trevor Chase just, at one point during one of their meetings, turns to Nikki and goes, "We're giving you your own reality TV show." And then Nikki reluctantly says yes. And then for the rest of the book, there's this camera crew that's constantly recording her. Like, it's so dumb. I mean, this is what apparently is relatable. This book just, it kind of has all the problems of Dork Diaries 6, but I feel that it's worse just because it's way more boring, and it's just very lucky. I think that's the best way to describe this book, is that it's Nikki, the main character, is just a lucky character, and if you thought Nikki was lucky in Dork Diaries 6, just you wait, it gets way worse in this book. Of course, at the end of the book, spoiler alert, she gets a perfect 10 out of 10 in the ski competition, in the extreme ski competition or whatever. Scores a perfect 10, gets first place, and it's because Mackenzie pushed Nikki off, and then went sliding down the hill and did all these flips and bumped into, trees or whatever, and apparently she gets a perfect 10. And Nikki's luck in this book is just, it's unbelievable. I mean, she gets to record a song and release it. How many 14-year-olds in middle school get to do that, She gets a perfect 10 in the ski competition. She got crowned Sweetheart Princess in the last book. And, of course, there's filler again. There's filler chapters. There's this side plot with her karate class and gym. And, the running joke is that the teacher is, this kind of, chubby, likes to eat a lot, is constantly eating during class. That's, the whole joke with him. It's really freaking annoying. I mean, thankfully there's not much of Brianna in this book, but my god, it's replaced by stuff that is just so stupid and so just unrelatable. She's constantly talking about her insane schedule and how she has to do this that day, and all this stuff with Trevor Chase and her band, and it's oh my god. This doesn't even feel like a Dork Diaries book. At least Dork Diaries 6 felt like a Dork Diaries book. You didn't feel like you were reading about some famous pop star that doesn't even seem like Nikki Maxwell. I mean, it's just terrible. No, I'm not going to be making a separate review of this because, like I said, that's all I have to say about it. There's really not much else to say. It's just the same problems as Dork Diaries 6, which I already planned to talk about, but just amplified and made even worse. I'm going to give Dork Diaries 7 a 3 out of 10. Okay, so Dork Diaries 8, Tales from a Not So Happily Ever After, is the next book. And I remember always liking this one. I always thought it was one of my favorite books ever since it came out. And I was hoping my opinion wouldn't change because I wanted to like this book. And I still do. Luckily, I thought the books were just going to get worse. Thankfully, book 8 is, for the most part, pretty good. There's some small problems I have. I don't know if this would be considered a problem, but maybe just a minor nitpick. I wouldn't call this a nitpick though, but I don't know how others would feel. But at the beginning, when Nikki goes to school with that sandwich stuck to her with Brianna's PB&J and pickle sandwich, it stuck to her clothes, and it's how did you not notice that before you went off to school? That part really bothered me. like, even if I feel like, even before she got to school, I feel like the sandwich would have, like, slid off her or something. Or, you know, even if the sandwich was still stuck to her by the time she got to school, wouldn't she have noticed before she got to school? Like, I don't know about you, but I think I would notice a sandwich that stuck to me. But yeah, I mean, that's a minor problem. But the rest of the book is really good. I mean, I've heard people don't like Dork Diaries 8, and the only complaint I hear about it is that it's different. And yeah, that is true. Like, that's a fact. It is the most unique Dork Diaries book. But then people say that they didn't like it because it was different. But they don't give any, like, actual reason. To me, I think that's a good thing. I mean, they could have easily just had another story and go through the month of April and just more of your usual Dork Diaries drama. But they didn't do that. I mean, the book takes place in the majority of the book, Nikki gets hit in the face with a dodgeball, and she wakes up in this strange fairy tale world, and where she meets all her classmates, and basically just people from her life are fairy tale characters, and I think it's it's really unique. Like I said, the stuff at the beginning was kind of ridiculous, but the concept is just so wacky, and it takes the classic middle school formula and kind of just turns it on its head and gives us something completely different that we've never seen before. And I give the book major points for that. I mean, it's really creative. I mean, yeah, you could skip this book. I mean, you really don't need to read it. It doesn't, I don't think it I mean, okay, the only thing that it does affect is that Mackenzie has to clean the shower room, and that's how she gets the bug in her hair in book 9. But that's the only thing you need to know. The majority of this book can be skipped. So is the book really necessary? No, the story is not necessary, but I think it would be worth it for you to read it. I mean, it's not like Dork Diaries 6, where it's just like kind of completely pointless, and Dork Diaries 7, which again is kind of completely pointless, where there's only like a few things that come from the book that you really need to know. But the difference with Dork Diaries 8 is that I actually think it's worth it to read. It may not be a necessary story to tell. I'm going to give Dork Diaries 8 an 8 out of 10. But actually, this is going to be the end of this video. This is going to be part 1 of this video. Part 2 will be uploaded closer to when Dork Diaries 15 releases, so around early October. So you will probably be seeing this around mid-September. That's when I plan to upload this. So yeah, the first 8 books are going to be covered in part 1, and books 9 to 14 are going to be covered in part 2, because if I upload it with all 14 books in one video, it's gonna be over an hour long, and it's gonna just be, I mean, this video is pretty much almost an hour long, but yeah, it's just gonna take way too long to upload. So head over to part 2 if it's uploaded. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for part 2, like I said, and have yourselves a good night.